One day, Yoshino walks while reading his book when his close friend Mahiro calls out to and tells him to head to school ahead, saying he will take his little sister Aika home first. Yoshino warns him not to be late so he does not get punished, then greets Aika, but she ignores him and offers no reply. Mahiro walks with Aika toward their home and asks why she did not respond to Yoshino. Aika says that Yoshino is a fraud who deceives people with an innocent face. Mahiro is taken aback by her words but continues on his way. At the same time on a deserted island, a barrel crashes onto the ground, and a princess named Hakaze steps out from inside it. She speaks to herself, saying she has fallen victim to Samon's plans, that he cast her onto this island so she cannot escape. She realizes she cannot use magic there, certain that barriers have been placed to hide the island from sight. With no way to ask for help from the outside, she understands her situation. Elsewhere, Samon sits calmly as one of his subordinates asks whether this will be enough to stop the princess. Samon replies that on that island, Hakaze cannot use magic, and without it, she is no different from an ordinary girl who will eventually perish. After some time, Yoshino is at school, reading a book in front of the class, when he notices a group of girls whispering about him. He responds to their comments without looking up and continues reading, leaving them startled as they wonder how he heard them, and even replied. After class, the teacher stops Yoshino and asks if he has heard any news about Mahiro, saying that a month has passed with no information about his whereabouts. Yoshino says he has not heard anything. He then walks toward the cemetery, thinking to himself that if Mahiro is still alive, he might be killing someone at this very moment. While walking, he suddenly encounters 5 bullies who quickly beat him and steal his wallet. As he lies there, he thinks that he cannot handle 5 people at once, and that things would have been different if Mahiro were there. He then gets up and continues toward the cemetery. He stops in front of a specific grave when a woman suddenly appears behind him and introduces herself as Fred Ulan, telling him not to worry and claiming she is not suspicious, as she works with the government. She asks about his relationship with Mahiro. Yoshino tells her they have known each other for a long time, but he knows nothing about him since his disappearance a month ago. As Yoshino begins to turn his head, Fred Ulan suddenly points a gun at him, and says that 2 weeks earlier, they saw a teenager in one area, and a week later in another area rescuing someone. When asked his name he called himself Mahiro. She adds that both locations were areas where a disease known as black iron had spread. Yoshino reacts with surprise and says that Mahiro is not the type to save people. Fred Ulan asks if that would still be true if it were a 15-year-old girl. Yoshino remembers Aika and says that Mahiro has a little sister, and that he helps anyone who resembles her without hesitation. He adds that Mahiro cares about Aika more than anyone else. Fred Ulan asks why he spoke of her in the past tense. Yoshino replies that she is now buried in the grave behind her. Yoshino recalls the past, standing beside Mahiro in front of Aika's grave. Mahiro had said that 10 months had passed and the government still could not find the killer, questioning how someone could leave no trace at all. Yoshino asked what he planned to do. Mahiro replied that he would do everything he could to find the killer. Back in the present, Fred Ulan moves the gun closer, and Yoshino panics, wondering what he should do. He suddenly notices strange butterflies nearby and points out that something is odd, since this type of butterfly should hide during winter. Fred Ulan is caught off guard by the sight. In that moment, Yoshino swings his umbrella and strikes her, causing her weapon to fall away. Fred Ulan quickly recovers, grabs Yoshino, and throws him to the ground, pulling another weapon from her bag. At that instant Mahiro appears, kicks Fred Ulan, and knocks her back. He asks Yoshino who she is, and Yoshino answers that she came to kill him. Fred Ulan rises again, grabs her gun, and fires at Mahiro, but he blocks the bullet with magic. He charges at her, takes that and throws it aside. Fred Ulan stands once more, draws the second gun and tries to shoot again. Mahiro avoids the shot, rushes forward, grabs her head, slams it into the ground, and renders her unconscious. He then tells Yoshino that they are leaving. As they walk through the city, it is revealed that every living creature has turned into metal. Mahiro explains that the black iron disease is not a true illness but the result of magic, and that the government is desperately trying to conceal this fact. Yoshino asks what is really going on. Mahiro tells him about a man named Samon from the sorcerer family, who uses this magic to gain power and seeks to collect fragments of something called the fruits, which are the source of the black iron spread. He explains that only one person can stop this, the rightful heir of the sorcerer family, the strongest witch named Hakaze, who is currently imprisoned on an island. Yoshino is stunned and asks if Mahiro is the witch's disciple. Mahiro says he is not, explaining that he is helping her in exchange for her assistance in finding his sister's killer. He then shows Yoshino a wooden doll used to communicate with Hakaze. Hakaze speaks through the doll, saying she believes the arrangement is fair. Yoshino, astonished, asks where the doll came from. At that moment, the ground begins to shake. Hakaze tells Mahiro to go and check what is happening at once, and the two of them move together. While running, Mahiro explains that a month earlier, he found a bottle on the beach. Inside it was a wooden piece, the doll, along with a letter saying that wishes could be granted. He pressed a nail into the doll, and through that act, he was able to make contact with Hakaze. Elsewhere, Samon stands before the ocean as a massive fruit rises from the water. Mahiro tells Yoshino that this is the very thing they are trying to stop. The next day Yoshino and Mahiro move through the city, and Yoshino asks what the fruit really is, wondering if it is part of what Samon is trying to summon. Mahiro answers that it is long ago, a tree descended from space with the purpose of destroying the earth, and that tree was known as the tree of Zetsuen. Humanity, aided by the Kuzurib family, managed to plant another tree to protect the planet, called the Tree of Genesis. Now Samon is searching across the world for fragments of the fruits of Zetsuen, gathering them into one place. Once they are assembled, he plans to merge them and restore the tree's true form, and if that happens the world will reach its end. These fruits lie underground, and Samon uses magic to draw them to the surface. When a fruit emerges, everyone nearby becomes affected by the black iron disease. Hakaze speaks through Dal saying that is correct, but there is no need for concern, because she will not allow it to happen. Mahiro then tells Yoshino they should go. Yoshino asks where, and Mahiro answers that they are going to his house. Hands Yoshino the key, telling him to open the door. Hakaze instructs him to go to the exact site of the incident, and to use the magic tools, explaining that even his use of a knife will be enough for her to trace the killer. Yoshino is taken aback by the existence of such tools. Mahiro explains that they are meant to help those who cannot naturally use magic, and that Hakaze hid them in various places so no one from her clan could find them. He tells him to let the tools touch his skin, allowing him to use simple magic. Mahiro takes the knife and drives it into the ground, asking Hakaze to grant him permission to use magic. She chants the incantation and magic begins to spread outward. She tells him that it will take time to identify the killer, since the incident occurred a year ago. Mahiro says he does not care, that he has waited long enough, and that he will never forgive Aika's killer. Yoshino asks Hakaze if she is certain about trusting Mahiro. She replies that their interests align, and that he has no reason to betray her. Mahiro warns Yoshino that the city will soon be quarantined due to the spread of the black iron disease, and tells him to escape as quickly as possible. He hands him several magic tools, explaining that they will prevent infection and can be used for defense. He adds that if Yoshino sees butterflies, he should be cautious, as they are one of the signs of a fruit's appearance. Mahiro tells him that he will return after killing Aika's murderer. After Yoshino leaves, Hakaze asks Mahiro if he is certain about giving him the magic tools. Mahiro answers that he has known Yoshino for a long time. At that moment the knife absorbs the surrounding magic, and Mahiro stands still, waiting in silence for the moment when he will finally learn who killed his sister. Elsewhere, Yoshino walks through the streets, wondering why there are still no ambulances and whether the government intends to abandon the city entirely. He notices the bullies who attacked him earlier, now transformed into metallic bodies. He retrieves the wallet they had stolen from him. Suddenly, Fraulein appears from behind, strikes him on the head with her bag, grabs him, and tightens her hold, warning him not to move or she will shoot. She demands to know what he knows about Hakaze. Yoshino quickly remembers the magic tool in his pocket and tries to activate it. The magic suddenly erupts, throwing them apart. Yoshino scrambles up, grabs the gun, and runs. He takes refuge inside the school, but Fraulein follows, firing wildly at the budding as she declares that she has found him. She opens her bag, takes out a gas bomb, and releases it into the area. Yoshino begins to choke as the gas spreads and tries to move away from it. Fraulein says there is nowhere he can hide, then climbs up to the roof to search for him. Moments later, Yoshino appears behind her, fires at the water tank, then points the gun at her as he walks toward her at a steady pace. Fraulein reacts quickly, striking him and reaching for her weapon. But Yoshino grabs her, activates the magic, and leaps off the building with her. Just before they reach the ground, Yoshino halts the magic and tells her that he wants to make a deal. Fraulein is stunned by what is happening, and Yoshino says that he cannot leave Mahiro alone anyway. Later, they walk side by side, and Fraulein says she accepts the deal, but advises him to stay away from Mahiro, warning that staying close to him will put his life in danger. She says Mahiro is driven only by revenge for his sister. Yoshino answers that she is right, adding that even his girlfriend used to say the same thing. Fraulein pauses and asks why he spoke in the past tense. Yoshino replies that she died exactly 1 year ago. Fraulein is taken aback and thinks to herself that this must be Mahiro's sister. She then says that he must also be seeking revenge for Aika. Yoshino responds that he is not like Mahiro, and that even if he were to take revenge, nothing would truly change. At the same time, Mahiro walks through the street as Hakaze speaks to him, saying she did not expel her to be someone from the Kuzurib clan. She notes that the incident occurred a year ago, before she was exiled to the island, and questions how she failed to notice it. Mahiro answers that he cannot blame her, and that it is clear he still needs her help to catch the killer. Suddenly, a mysterious figure appears in front of him, and asks what he is doing there. Mahiro responds by asking the same question, stating that the man must be inspecting the area under Samon's orders. The stranger immediately attacks, but Mahiro avoids the blow. The man asks where Mahiro learned to use magic. Mahiro replies that it came from Hakaze. The princess warns him not to engage directly, telling him that the man is Kuzurib Natsumura, a powerful opponent. Mahiro ignores the warning and charges forward, and the two of them begin to fight. Natsumura attacks Mahiro, but Mahiro avoids the strike and leaps back to create distance. Natsumura reports to Samon that he encountered a boy at the site where the fruit appeared who did not turn into metal, and was able to use Kusaraibe family magic. Samon replies that this must be the princess's messenger and instructs him to capture the boy without killing him. Mahiro leaps toward him and the two clash again, but Natsumura hurls him aside. Mahiro releases a dense cloud of smoke and escapes. Natsumura moves off to search, while Mahiro hides behind a parked car. Yoshino suddenly appears behind him and asks what he is doing there, saying he should not be with him now. Yoshino replies that he cannot leave him alone. Mahiro warns him to stay quiet so Natsumura will not discover them, but a bag slips from Yoshino's hand and hits the ground. Natsumura finds them and gives chase. Mahiro grabs Yoshino's hand, and together they jump to another building just before Natsumura reaches them. Hakaze tells Mahiro that he must withdraw from the fight or he will die. Mahiro answers that if he retreats now, he will no longer be able to face Aika's killer. Yoshino pulls out the magic tools from his pocket and asks Mahiro whether they can defeat Natsumura with them. Mahiro replies that the tools can be used to heal wounds. He then uses magic in front of Yoshino, hands him the doll, and asks Hakaze to teach him magic as quickly as possible. Mahiro immediately rushes toward Natsumura. Yoshino asks Hakaze what will happen if Natsumura uses offensive magic. She explains that the Kusaraibe clan does not possess offensive magic, and that their magic exists only to protect the world. Yoshino then asks where the power of the spear in Natsumura's hand comes from. Hakaze replies that the spearhead is surrounded by a field of energy, and that Natsumura uses agility magic to move the spear at high speed, allowing it to damage an opponent, even though the magic itself does not cause harm. She adds that if too much force is used, the magic tools will break. Yoshino runs off to find Mahiro. At the same time, Mahiro attacks with everything he has, and a fierce battle unfolds. Natsumura avoids the strikes and leaps away, then begins chanting to gather power before detonating the surrounding area. Mahiro is thrown to the ground, and Natsumura believes the fight is over. Suddenly Mahiro grabs the spear and strikes back, but the blows have no effect. He continues attacking yet Natsumura blocks each strike, throws him aside and smashes him into a wall. Mahiro forces himself to flee. Elsewhere, Yoshino searches desperately but cannot find Mahiro. He then notices two military helicopters moving to destroy the tunnels and bridges leading into the city, yet he continues forward. At the same time Mahiro runs into a tunnel, with Natsumura close behind. Mahiro pulls out a gun and fires, but Natsumura blots with defensive magic. None of them reach him. Mahiro then shoots a gas pipe triggering a massive explosion. When the flames clear, Natsumura emerges without injury and tells Mahiro that there is no chance left for him. At that moment Mahiro's body begins to heal on its own. Yoshino bursts out from the fire, strikes Natsumura, and tells Mahiro to run. Natsumura chases them at full speed, but just before he catches up, fighter jets fire missiles into the tunnel, collapsing it completely. Natsumura later reports to Samon that he failed to capture them and offers an apology. Samon tells him not to worry, adding that if the princess chooses to oppose them, they will face her again. That night Mahiro and Yoshino sit on a train. Mahiro says that thanks to Hakaze's magic, he is close to identifying the killer, and that the person is someone from the Kusaraibe family. Yoshino reacts in silence, taken aback by what he hears. The next day Mahiro and Yoshino get off the bus and head toward an area where several magic tools are hidden. Butterflies suddenly appear around them, and Yoshino notices two elderly people walking along the street. He says he has to warn them before the disease reaches them and runs ahead, telling them about the black iron disease. They dismiss his words, calling him strange, and tell him to leave them alone because they are busy. Yoshino is surprised that they do not believe him. Mahiro tells him that of course they will not, because the government conceals all information about the black iron disease. Moments later, a fruit rises from underground and every living creature in the area is turned into metal. Mahiro and Yoshino move into a nearby house to rest. Yoshino begins preparing food and Hakaze asks him when and how he first met Mahiro. He replies that they met in elementary school. Yoshino recalls the past, remembering how Mahiro was arrogant and selfish, and how his father was a powerful figure, which made everyone afraid to criticize Mahiro's behavior. Yoshino avoided him whenever he could. One day, while Mahiro was walking home, government was pursuing a thief on a motorcycle. The thief suddenly struck Mahiro. He survived with only minor injuries and fractures. The following day, the teacher addressed the class and said that Mahiro must feel lonely, asking who would accompany him to visit Mahiro. No one volunteered. The teacher then said that whoever was being punished would go instead, and by coincidence, Yoshino was the only one. After school, the teacher and Yoshino visit Mahiro. Mahiro asks the teacher for juice, and once the teacher leaves the room, Mahiro asks Yoshino for help. He says he knows Yoshino does not like him, but that no adult will believe him. He asks Yoshino to gather as much information as possible about the accident and the criminal involved. Yoshino asks what he plans to do with it. Mahiro replies that he believes the criminal intended to kill him, that the theft was staged to draw the government's attention, and that the collision was meant to look like an accident. He says he only needs proof. Yoshino agrees to help. The next day, Yoshino gathers the information and brings it to the hospital. Mahiro is surprised that he managed to do it alone. Yoshino shows him the chronograph and personal data, adding that he discovered where the man works and that he was Mahiro's former driver. Mahiro confirms that he saw his father chasing him. Yoshino explains that the man knew Mahiro's route and schedule, and that since he had been fired by Mahiro's father, he likely acted out of revenge. Mahiro says he needs to inform his father immediately. Back in the present, Yoshino finishes preparing the food and Mahiro sits down to eat. Afterward, they lie down to sleep, knowing that the next day will bring a dangerous mission. Elsewhere, Samon sits as Natsumura enters. Samon asks whether he wants to know where the two boys are. Natsumura replies that he does, but admits they have no direct means to locate them. He adds that it does not matter, because they will find the place on their own. The base is protected by a barrier of concealment magic, making it invisible from the outside. However, the fruits rising into the sky are proof that the tree of Zetsuen is there, and by following the path of those fruits, they will reach the location without error. The next day, Mahiro and Yoshino move through the forest toward Samon's base, guided by the direction of the fruits, which are drawn toward the tree of Zetsuen that Samon intends to awaken. Hakaze speaks through the doll, telling them that this land belongs to her clan, and that she spent much of her childhood there. She explains that she buried several magic tools in the area, and that these tools will allow them to use magic for longer periods. Yoshino asks why Samon chose to imprison her on the island instead of killing her. Hakaze answers that Samon spared her, because she is the only one capable of stopping the Zetsuen if it loses control. She says that even 100 sorcerers like Samon could not stop it, and that he kept her alive only as a safeguard. When they reach the base, Hakaze instructs them to enter the building, saying they will find a whale skeleton inside where she buried the tools. They go in and retrieve the magic tools. Suddenly, an archer named Kusarab Tetsuma appears with several soldiers surrounding them. Mahiro attacks Tetsuma at once, but the soldiers throw iron chains and restrain him. Yoshino uses agility magic and strikes the whale skeleton, causing it to collapse toward them. They flee, but Tetsuma's soldiers appear ahead and throw more iron chains at Mahiro. He evades them and one chain strikes a water tank, flooding the area. Amid the rising water, they manage to escape and search for another road out. Mahiro tells Yoshino to draw Tetsuma and his soldiers toward him. Yoshino runs ahead and Tetsuma notices and gives chase. Mahiro waits nearby and uses magic to destroy the surrounding water tanks. He grabs an exposed electric wire and threatens Tetsuma, saying that if he does not retreat, he will release the electricity into the water. Faced with no choice, Tetsuma allows them to escape. That night, Hakaze tells them that to defeat the tree of Zetsuen, they must retrieve her magical weapon. She explains that the weapon can destroy the tree with a single shot, and that she entrusted it to a man named Kusarib Junichiro, the person she trusts most. She believes he is still living in the same place. Mahiro asks why she chose him. Hakaze replies that Junichiro would never betray her, as he has always remained neutral and avoids conflict. After that, Mahiro and Yoshino go to Junichiro's house and knock on the door. He opens it and asks who they are. They tell him that Hakaze sent them to retrieve her magical weapon. He invites them inside and hands over the weapon, then asks if they would like to observe a moment of silence for Hakaze. His words leave them stunned. He asks if they do not know that Hakaze is dead. Shocked, they ask where he learned this. Junichiro replies that he confirmed it himself, saying that she died on a deserted island. That was a month and a half ago. Junichiro explains that he heard the news from Samon and decided to go to the family mansion to confirm it himself. The scene returns to the past where Junichiro stands before the mansion and is granted entry by Samon. Inside, he finds Hakaze's body placed before him. Junichiro asks why he was summoned. Samon replies that he has eliminated the princess. Junichiro questions how this was possible, saying that Hakaze was the strongest witch of their clan, and that killing her would violate their laws, bringing severe consequences. Samon answers that he only used a sleeping drug to put her to sleep, sealed her inside a barrel, and sent her to a deserted island so she would die on her own. He says this means he did not break the clan's laws. He adds that the day before, he retrieved the barrel and the body from the island. Samon removes the covering, revealing Hakaze's bones. Junichiro is stunned by what he sees. Samon turns to leave and tells him that this is not the time to mourn. Back in the present, Mahiro takes the bag containing the magical weapon and tells Yoshino that they should go. They board a bus, and Mahiro asks Hakaze who Junichiro is and why he believes she is dead. Hakaze hears that Junichiro lost his parents when he was young and was adopted by the clan, and because of that, he cannot use magic. She adds quietly that she does not understand why he believed she was dead, saying that he has sharp perception, yet accepted that those bones were hers. Yoshino says that Samon must be planning something they do not yet understand. At that moment, Yoshino notices butterflies ahead, and a fruit rises from underground. At the same time, Junichiro leaves his house to see what is happening and witnesses the fruit of Zetsuen floating in the sky. He notices the black iron disease beginning to appear on someone nearby. Natsumura suddenly appears behind him and offers him a place among them. Junichiro refuses. Natsumura says he will have to use force and attacks, but Junichiro easily throws him to the ground and says he has no intention of helping them. Elsewhere, Yoshino and Mahiro stop at a nearby location to rest. Mahiro asks if Yoshino has heard the rumors that Aika had a boyfriend. Yoshino grows tense and says no. As they talk, soldiers observe them from a distance. Mahiro stands and opens the bag to Hakaze's magical weapon, then tells Yoshino that they are surrounded. Soldiers rush in, beat Mahiro until he loses consciousness, and take Yoshino away. After that, Yoshino is seen in a car with Fradulan driving. She asks if he does not feel guilty about making a deal with her at the school while Mahiro knows nothing about it. Yoshino replies that he does not, adding that he is hiding an even bigger secret from Mahiro. Fradulan says that he was Aika's boyfriend. He confirms it, and says he hopes Mahiro never learns the truth. Yoshino asks where they are going. Fradulan tells him they are going to meet someone she wants him to see. They arrive, and Fradulan introduces the man, saying his name is Takumi, and that he is the director of the anti-Black Iron Disease forces. Takumi says they are preparing to declare war on the sorcerers, explaining that the situation is affecting society and must be controlled before the world is destroyed. Fradulan hands Yoshino the items he requested, which are bombs. He thanks her and gives her magic tools in return. She asks what he plans to do with the bombs. Yoshino replies that they are for protection and asks to borrow her gun. She agrees and warns him to be careful. Yoshino then asks Takumi to explain the plan. Takumi agrees and begins to speak, but Mahiro suddenly appears before them. The soldiers warn him not to approach, but Mahiro attacks without hesitation. Fradulan orders them to open fire, yet Mahiro avoids the bullets and strikes the soldiers one after another. Yoshino and Fradulan are taken by force and flee in the car. Mahiro gives chase and leaps onto the vehicle. Yoshino opens the door and jumps out, and Mahiro grabs him as they escape together into the distance. The next day, the army led by Fradulan prepares to storm Samon's base. Samon watches the movements and speaks to himself, saying he expected an attack, but not this quickly, and that he must finish off the princess today. Elsewhere, Yoshino and Mahiro head toward Samon's base, determined to destroy the tree of Zetsuen before it awakens. Mahiro readies the magical weapon and says that today he will finally kill Aika's murderer. At the same time, the army begins its assault on the base, attempting to break the barrier. Samon orders that the awakening of the tree be accelerated and tells Tetsuma to remove the concealment magic and use it to reinforce the barrier instead. The massive tree of Zetsuen emerges, and Tetsuma informs Samon that someone has breached the barrier. At that moment, Mahiro and Yoshino force their way through and tell Hakaze that they have managed to enter. She urges them to hurry and destroy the tree of Zetsuen. As they move forward, they come face to face with Samon. Hakaze addresses him, saying that 4 months have passed since they last met, and that he knows what the weapon in their hands is capable of. She explains that it contains the full power of her magic, and that once it is used, Samon will lose control of the tree of Zetsuen, causing destruction everywhere and leaving him with no option but to bring her back. Samon turns to Mahiro and tells him to wait, asking if he understands what will happen if he uses the weapon. He says that doing so will destroy the world. Yoshino asks how that could be, questioning whether the tree of Zetsuen is not the true cause of the world's destruction. Samon explains that if the tree of Genesis awakens, it will clash with the tree of Zetsuen, and that conflict will lead to the end of the world. He asks Mahiro what he will choose, warning that a wrong decision will doom everything. Mahiro replies that he does not care about the world, and that he is there only for revenge, telling Samon to bring the princess back before he destroys the tree. Samon answers that he cannot revive the dead and reveals Hakaze's skeleton from the barrel, saying that she is already dead. Hakaze responds by asking how she can be dead when she is speaking to them. Samon replies that he went to the island and retrieved her skeleton, then asks her what year it is now. He reminds her that she claimed to have been on the island for 4 months. Hakaze gives the date, and everyone is stunned. Yoshino says that the date she mentioned was from 2 years ago. Hakaze insists that it is impossible, saying she is certain she was there for only 4 months. Samon explains that she has been trapped in the past for 2 years, and that she has been communicating with them through magic that links the past and the present. Elsewhere, Natsumura appears before the army. They open fire, but he forms a defensive barrier and advances straight toward them. He leaps onto a tank's magic and reduces it to dust. Missiles are launched at him, and the soldiers watch in disbelief as the attack has no effect. At the same time, Samon tells them that their mission is over and that they can hand over the weapon and leave, assuring them they will not be harmed. Mahiro turns to Hakaze and says that he is sorry, but he has to leave her and has no other choice. He then tells Samon that his mission is not finished yet. Samon is taken aback and says that the princess cannot return now, which means Mahiro has already lost. He warns that if the tree is shot, no one will be able to stop it, and the world will be destroyed. Mahiro replies that he does not care about the world and proposes a deal. He says that since Hakaze could not grant his wish, Samon will do it instead, and if he cannot, then Mahiro will destroy the world without hesitation. Samon asks what his wish is. Mahiro says that a year ago, someone killed his sister, and he has been searching for the killer ever since. The killer is a member of the Kusaribe clan, and what he wants is for Samon to find that person and bring him back alive. In return, Mahiro will hand over the weapon. Samon contacts Tetsuma through a wooden piece and orders him to locate Aika's killer as quickly as possible and bring him there. Yoshino picks up the doll from the ground and tells Hakaze that the deal between Samon and Mahiro has been made. Hakaze says that this means she has lost in the end, and that if Samon is right, the tree of Zetsuen will destroy the world. She adds that even if she could stop it, no one would be able to stop Samon. Yoshino thinks to himself that there must be a way to save Hakaze, and that he will try for Aika's sake. Suddenly, Yoshino steps in front of Mahiro and throws a flash grenade, then rushes forward to seize the weapon. Mahiro pushes him away. Yoshino throws another grenade and tries to strike him, but Mahiro blocks every attempt. Samon uses the opening, draws his sword and attacks Yoshino, but Yoshino forms a defensive barrier and stops the blow. Samon attacks again, but Mahiro steps in front of Yoshino and says that he will not allow him to be harmed. Yoshino throws another grenade and jumps back. Mahiro asks what Yoshino is doing. Yoshino says that they came there to save Hakaze, and that Mahiro abandoned her. Mahiro replies that he had no other choice, saying that the Hakaze they know exists in the past, and that he has already made a deal with Samon to find Aika's killer. Yoshino asks if he would return to Hakaze's side if there were a way to save her and still get his revenge. Mahiro answers that he is on the verge of learning who killed Aika, and asks why he should care about going back to Hakaze. Yoshino then says that if Mahiro comes back, he will tell him who Aika's boyfriend was. Mahiro is shaken and says that if Yoshino can convince him there is a way to bring Hakaze back before he learns the truth about Aika's killer, then he will join him, but if not, the deal will be void. Yoshino says that if it were not for Mahiro, no one would have helped Hakaze, and that finding the doll was not a coincidence, but the result of the Tree of Genesis protecting her. He adds that Samon must have known from the beginning that they were communicating with the princess, driven by his fear that the Tree of Zetsuen could lose control. That means there is a way to bring Hakaze back, even if she is trapped in the past, and that Samon deliberately tried to deceive them. Elsewhere, Ferdulin steps in front of Natsumura and tells him that she will not allow him to destroy their army. Natsumura rushes at her, and the two engage in combat. He quickly knocks her staff aside and throws her to the ground, then turns to walk away. Junichiro calls out to him, and Natsumura stops and turns back. At the same time, Yoshino says that Samon intended to drive the princess into despair, buying time to revive the Tree of Zetsuen. Samon panics, realizing this was indeed his plan, and admits to himself that he cannot defeat the princess, while the Tree of Genesis protects her, and that Yoshino uncovered the truth with ease. Samon tells Yoshino that even if he is right, the princess is still trapped in the past, and asks how she could possibly be brought back. Yoshino answers that there is no such thing as a prison of time, and that it is all an illusion. He says Samon deceived them into believing Hakaze was trapped in the past, when in reality he put her to sleep for 2 years and cast her onto the island. Mahiro asks whether the skeleton is not truly Hakaze's. Yoshino explains that during those 2 years, magic was used to duplicate Hakaze's bones, and that this was the only way to deceive them. Mahiro raises the weapon toward the tree and tells Samon that he has no choice but to bring Hakaze back. Samon reacts in shock and insists that the bones are without question the princess's. Yoshino asks if he has any proof, then urges Mahiro to use the weapon quickly so they can save Hakaze and still fulfill his wish. Samon counters by pointing to the barrel, saying that the princess has one identical to it, and that if she writes something on her barrel, it will appear on the barrel here due to the time difference, proving Yoshino's theory wrong. Yoshino tells Hakaze to write the word, and when she does, it appears on the present barrel. Samon declares it impossible, saying that the barrel cannot exist in 2 places at once, and claims this proves she is trapped in the past, and that Yoshino's theory has failed. He then tells Mahiro there is no need to use the weapon, as he will bring the one who killed his sister immediately. Hakaze tells Yoshino that perhaps his theory is wrong, but his reasoning is sound, adding that the Tree of Genesis protects her and that Samon is clearly hiding something. Mahiro says that if her voice can cross time, then there must also be a way to transfer her body through magic. Mahiro asks her how she was able to use magic to transmit her voice. Hakaze replies that it requires 2 similar objects and a part of the sorcerer's body, such as blood. Yoshino says that by following these conditions, if they can find something similar to the princess's body, they should be able to transfer her without difficulty. Hakaze asks where they would find something like her body there. Mahiro answers that there is already something like her present, her skeleton. Elsewhere, Junichiro approaches Fardulin and hands her a bottle of water. She asks if he is a sorcerer as well. He replies that he cannot use magic but that he can defeat sorcerers. Natsumura asks why he came, saying that Junichiro was supposed to remain neutral and avoid involvement. Junichiro answers that he cannot leave a woman to fight alone, then charges forward and throws Natsumura to the ground with ease. Natsumura rises and thinks to himself that he cannot face Junichiro alone and must escape. He attempts to flee, but Junichiro appears in front of him and says he will not let him run so easily. Junichiro orders Natsumura to heal Ferdulin. Natsumura approaches her, speaks the incantation and restores her condition. Ferdulin thanks him, but Junichiro tells her there is no need, explaining that Natsumura cannot kill her. He says the Kusarib clan cannot violate its laws, and that murder is the greatest sin. Any sorcerer who kills someone is stripped of the right to use magic. At the same time, Yoshino says they still need a spell to transfer Hakaze. Samon says that Yoshino has truly unraveled the mystery of the time prison, and that with this method, he himself could bring the princess back if the tree lost control. He admits that he hid the spell capable of restoring Hakaze somewhere on the island. Samon then tells Mahiro that his sister died because of the princess. He claims that since the Tree of Genesis governs the fate of the world, it sacrificed Aika to protect Hakaze. He tells Mahiro that in that case, his revenge should be directed at the tree, and urges him to join them and destroy it. Yoshino denies this, saying that if Samon had not cast the princess onto the island, Aika would not have died, and that the true killer belongs to the Kuzurib clan. Elsewhere, Hakaze runs desperately across the island in search of the spell. She tells herself that Samon planned to bring her back if the tree went out of control, so he would not have hidden the spell in a place that was difficult to find. She resolves to locate it before Mahiro learns who the killer is. Samon tells Mahiro that it is impossible for the killer to be a member of the Kuzurib family, since the clan follows strict laws that forbid the use of magic for evil. Hakaze responds that even so, she is certain the killer is from their clan. She explains that when she used magic to identify the murderer, no information appeared, meaning that the Tree of Genesis permitted the killing, a privilege reserved only for the Kuzurib family. Suddenly, Tetsuma reports to Samon with new information about the killer, saying they investigated the murders from the previous year. Samon orders him to bring the person at once. Tetsuma replies that it is impossible, stating that no one in the clan committed murder that year. The revelation shocks everyone. Mahiro asks Hakaze what this means. Hakaze answers that there is only one person who could evade the magic she used to identify the killer. Someone who does not serve the Tree of Genesis and stands against all order. A sorcerer who destroys everything in his path. A sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen. Mahiro asks her in anger whether a being called the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen truly exists. Hakaze replies that when the Tree of Genesis was close to awakening, she herself was born, and her role was to awaken the Tree of Genesis at the proper time, before the Tree of Zetsuen could awaken. She explains that when the Tree of Zetsuen neared its awakening, that imbalance gave rise to the sorcerer bound to it. Elsewhere, a massive whirlpool forms in the middle of the ocean, and from its center a gigantic tree rises, leaving everyone who witnesses it frozen in shock. The tree continues to rise and spread across the sky. Furolin asks Junichiro what that tree is. He answers that it is the Tree of Genesis, and that what they are seeing is only a fragment of its true form. At the same time, Hakaze runs at full speed in search of the spell, telling herself that she must find it before the Tree of Zetsuen fully awakens. She begins to sense that the events unfolding are not mere coincidence, and that the Tree of Genesis is involved in all of this. She wonders quietly whether the tree killed Aika because of her. Moments later, Hakaze finds the spell and tells Yoshino to place the doll beside her skeleton so she can locate it through magic. She begins chanting and a blue beam of light shoots out from the island. Light pours from the barrel, stunning everyone present, as the princess's body slowly forms over the bones. Hakaze emerges from the barrel and declares to Samon that he must now obey her or she will kill him. She turns to Mahiro and says that she will still honor her promise, and that even if the Tree of Genesis killed his sister, he can take his revenge on her instead. At that moment, Tetsuma reports to Samon that the Tree of Genesis has begun its assault. The barrier has been destroyed, and the Tree of Zetsuen is no longer under control. A violent storm erupts as powerful winds sweep through the area. The Tree of Zetsuen prepares for battle, gathers its power, and attacks the Tree of Genesis, severing its branches. The Tree of Genesis rises again and retaliates, tearing the Tree of Zetsuen apart into fragments. The Tree of Zetsuen answers with a full-force counterattack, prompting Junichiro to order Netsumura to erect a defensive barrier at once. Elsewhere, Hakaze asks Mahiro for her weapon, and tells him she will reinforce the barrier in case the Tree of Zetsuen attacks them. She instructs Mahiro and Yoshino to stay where they are and not move until she stops the tree. Suddenly, the Tree of Zetsuen strike, shattering the barrier and severely injuring Yoshino. Shock spreads among them. Mahiro and Hakaze rush to his side, but the tree delivers a fatal blow to Mahiro. Hakaze desperately tries to heal Yoshino before he dies and orders Samon to save Mahiro while she goes to stop the tree, warning him that if anything happens to Mahiro, she will never forgive him. Samon immediately moves to pull Mahiro back from death. After some time, Mahiro wakes from a nightmare and finds Samon sitting beside him. Mahiro says he never wished for Samon to be the first person he saw upon waking. Samon smiles, and Mahiro asks how long he has been asleep. Samon answers that it has been about a month, explaining that Mahiro had to be kept unconscious because of his injuries. He draws the curtain aside, revealing the Tree of Genesis spreading across the land. Mahiro panics and asks where Yoshino is and whether he is safe. Samon tells him not to worry, saying Yoshino is alive and unharmed, then adds that he has a strange request and asks Mahiro to kill Yoshino. Elsewhere, a man named Hanamura is approached by a friend who calls him for lunch. The friend asks why his girlfriend left him. Hanamura replies with irritation that she did not want a man with no future. The friend then asks if he has heard the rumors about the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen, saying people believe he can defeat the Tree of Genesis and restore the world to how it once was. Hanamura says they must be talking about him, uses magic, and asks whether defeating the Tree of Genesis would finally give him a future. At the same time, Samon tells Mahiro that the princess is traveling from place to place to see the scale of the destruction caused by the Tree of Genesis, and that the only person she allowed to accompany her is Yoshino. Mahiro responds with a dry tone, saying it must be because she likes him. Samon opens the door to the room where Friulan and the others are waiting and asks Mahiro to sit down, saying he must be hungry. Friulan introduces Takumi, explaining that he was once the commander of the anti-Black Iron Disease forces, and that he is now responsible for spreading rumors about the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen. Mahiro asks if such a person truly exists. Samon replies that the rumors are being spread to find him before even greater destruction occurs. Elsewhere, Yoshino stands with Hakaze at Aika's grave. Hakaze apologizes, saying that she may be the reason for Aika's death. Yoshino takes her with him, and they walk through the city together. Hakaze says she is sure this place is filled with memories for him. Yoshino answers that most of them are sad ones. Hakaze grows quiet, and Yoshino thinks to himself that she seems more afraid of the power of the Tree of Genesis than ever before. He recalls how she told them, after they lost consciousness, that she stopped the Tree of Zetsuen and prevented the full awakening of the Tree of Genesis. Yoshino tells her not to blame herself, saying it is not her fault. Hakaze replies that in only 7 days, nothing remains but traces of destruction, and that the people who turned into metal were absorbed by the tree. She says she never imagined such power, and that all of this devastation came from only a fragment of the Tree of Genesis. She wonders what would happen if it fully awakened, noting that even Yoshino's friends and his home no longer exist. She apologizes to him on behalf of the Tree of Genesis. Yoshino tells her they should leave and go eat something. At the same time, Mahiro asks Samon if Hakaze has fallen in love with Yoshino. Samon replies that the princess is still under the protection of the Tree of Genesis, and that while she was stranded on the island, the only person who saved her was Yoshino. Because of that, he is the only one she trusts. Samon adds that the princess is confused now. Mahiro says that means Yoshino is influencing Hakaze's decisions, and that the fate of the world is now in Yoshino's hands. Elsewhere, Hakaze tells Yoshino that she will go get something and return shortly. When she comes back, she finds him standing with a man named Hanamura. Without hesitation, Hakaze attacks him. Yoshino stops her and asks if he did something. Hakaze says she sensed danger and asks who the man is. Yoshino explains that Hanamura asked for help finding transportation because he wants to go to the Tree of Zetsuen. Hakaze asks Hanamura what he plans to do, saying that the area is forbidden. Hanamura answers that he must go there no matter what, then asks if they have heard the rumors about the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen. He uses magic and declares that he is that sorcerer. Yoshino and Hakaze are stunned. They go to a restaurant and bring Hanamura with them. Hakaze asks when he first noticed his power. Hanamura says it was about a year ago, when he began to use strange abilities, and that after the Tree of Zetsuen appeared, his power grew stronger and easier to control. He says that when he heard the rumors, he realized his power must be connected to it. Hakaze tells him to stop pretending to be weak, saying that the power he possesses could destroy a building in seconds. Hanamura becomes frightened. Hakaze tells him not to be afraid and to continue eating. As he reaches for the food, she places a barrier over it. He looks at her in shock. Hakaze tells him that he is not the only sorcerer in the world, and that just as there are those who stand with the Tree of Zetsuen, there are also sorcerers who stand with the Tree of Genesis. She then challenges him to a duel. They move to an open battlefield. Hakaze explains the rules: if he makes her fall, he wins, and if she breaks his arm, she wins. Hanamura hesitates, but Hakaze tells him that if he defeats her, she will tell him everything he wants to know. The fight begins. Hakaze chants her spells, knocks him to the ground, and surrounds herself with a barrier. She attacks with rapid strikes and slams him down repeatedly. Hanamura rises, creates a defensive barrier and blocks her attacks. He charges at her but she strikes again. He blocks it, then uses his power to break her barrier and cut her arm. Hanamura panics, but Hakaze calmly says she can regenerate it, then strikes him with a powerful blow, knocking him down and breaking his arm. Elsewhere, Samon rides in a car with Takumi, and says that they did not find the killer of Mahiro's sister within the Kusarib clan, and that the princess proposed the theory that the killer might be the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen. He adds that even if Yoshino had not been with Mahiro at the Tree of Zetsuen, Mahiro would have uncovered the truth of the time prison on his own, or used the weapons him to bring Hakaze back. In reality, the Tree of Genesis never needed another person to save the princess. Samon concludes that this means Yoshino is the true sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen. That night, Fred Ulan's phone rings. It is Yoshino, she answers, and Yoshino tells her to hurry, saying that he has found the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen. The next day, Hanamura goes to meet Fred Ulin and Natsumura. He demonstrates his magic in front of them. Natsumura watches in shock and asks whether he uses magical tools or feels pain after using magic. Hanamura answers that he does not use any tools, that he only thinks about what he wants to do, and that he feels no pain at all. Natsumura asks how he attacks his enemies. Hanamura walks toward a part of the Tree of Genesis and focuses on destroying it. The tree is damaged, and Hanamura immediately collapses to the ground in fear. Fard Ulin catches him and places him in the car. As they drive away, she asks if he understands what he has just done. Hanamura says he did not intend it and that it was only a simple test. They take him to a house, where Mahiro is waiting. There is a possibility that Hanamura could be Aika's killer. Olin tells him they brought him there to investigate him in a murder case. Hanamura reacts in confusion, asking what she means. She tells him that the sorcerer of the tree of Zetsuen is suspected in a murder. Mahiro says he will not ask many questions. He states the date, November 23rd of the previous year, and says that his sister Aika was killed on that day. He asks Hanamura where he was and what he was doing. Hanamura becomes nervous, takes out his phone, and says that at that time he was with his girlfriend. Mahiro says they will go and ask her. Hanamura replies that it is impossible because she left him and no longer responds to his calls or messages. After that, they go to a gym to spar. Mahiro tells him to use his magic and try to knock him down. He tells him to get up and mocks him, saying his girlfriend probably left because he is a coward. Hanamura becomes angry and attacks using magic, but none of his strikes land. Mahiro counters with a kick and knocks him to the ground. Samon watches and thinks to himself that he still suspects Yoshino is the true sorcerer of the tree of Zetsuen, because there is no way the real one could be this weak. That night, Ulin is in a car with Takumi and one of his subordinates. They hear news reports saying no one knows who caused the Tree of Genesis to disappear. The subordinate mentions that a research team was sent to the Tree of Zetsuen. Takumi says they are likely trying to uncover the secrets of the Kusarib clan and tells Ulin that they must inform Samon of their plan first. The next day, Yoshino and Hakaze are at an amusement park. Hakaze says that people have begun acting normally again, even though many died in a short time and the world changed completely. She wonders if the Tree of Genesis rewrote human emotions. Yoshino replies that this is not the case, saying that even before the Tree of Genesis appeared there were wars, famines and natural disasters, yet people continued to live as usual. Junichiro suddenly appears in front of them and asks Yoshino to go buy coffee. Hakaze asks him why he came. Junichiro replies that she has fallen in love with Yoshino. Hakaze blushes and denies it, saying she is not someone who falls for others easily, and that Yoshino already loves someone else. She begins listing Yoshino's good qualities. Junichiro tells her that this only proves she has fallen for him. He adds that there is another girl who loves Yoshino, and that because of Hakaze, the Tree of Genesis will kill the one Yoshino loves. Hakaze reacts in fear. Takumi meets Samon to present a plan. Samon says he agrees to cooperate but warns that no decisions are to be made without his supervision. Takumi replies that all they need now is the princess's approval, and that convincing her may take time. Samon contacts Hakaze to persuade her, but she tells him to do whatever he wants and says that if anything happens, she can stop the tree herself. Samon is taken aback by how quickly Hakaze agrees. The next night, Yoshino stands with Hakaze in front of a news screen. Yoshino says that a spy has infiltrated the Kusarib clan village. Moments later, the broadcast reports that a portion of the Tree of Genesis is about to be destroyed by the sorcerer of Zetsuen. Two sorcerers appear, standing on the water, and summon the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen. He stands before the tree and uses magic to destroy part of it, leaving everyone watching in shock. Hakaze turns to Yoshino and says they must go to the Kusarib clan village so she can confirm this with her own eyes. The next day, the princess and Yoshino arrive at the village, where the residents welcome her warmly. Nearby, Ulin observes the two and says to Tetsuma that she expected the princess to be deceived so easily. She explains that she brought them there under Samon's orders to watch them closely and identify the true sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen. Tetsuma points toward Hanamura and asks if he is not the sorcerer. Ulin replies that they suspect the heart of the sorcerer of Zetsuen has separated from its original owner, and that Yoshino is in fact the body of the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen. Elsewhere, Hakaze sits with the villagers and hears a report that a child saw a ghost near the Kusarib family mansion the previous night. Hakaze says that someone may have sneaked into the village under cover of darkness, and she forbids the use of magic for the time being, explaining that they must first eliminate the spy to prevent their secrets from being exposed. Hakaze and Yoshino head to the Kusarib family mansion. Hakaze says that the spy may have come there searching for old documents and could return. Yoshino asks whether those documents contain the secret of the Tree of Genesis. Hakaze answers that they do not, explaining that the most important knowledge was passed down orally through generations, not written records. That night, they sit near one of the houses. As Hakaze speaks with Yoshino, villagers gather, searching for a missing girl. Hakaze asks what happened, and one of them says they cannot find her. The princess joins the search, calling the girl's name, but there is no sign of her. Suddenly someone runs in shouting that the Kusarib family mansion is on fire. They rush toward it and find the missing girl near the flames, standing beside the spy. The bridge connecting the village to the mansion has collapsed, preventing anyone from crossing. Hakaze says she has no choice but to use magic to save the girl. Yoshino warns that there may be hidden cameras and that their secret could be exposed. Hakaze replies that if she does not use magic, the fire will spread and they will lose any chance of saving the girl. Yoshino runs forward, grabs an iron chain, and attempts to swing across the gap. Hakaze shouts for him to stop, warning that he could fall and die, but Yoshino ignores her and continues. The chain snaps, yet he climbs again and moves carefully toward the spy, trying not to be noticed. He throws the chain at the man and the two begin to fight. Yoshino tells the girl to run, but the spy grabs him, throws him aside, pulls out a gun, and aims it at him. At that moment the mansion collapses, and Hakaze uses magic to shield Yoshino. The spy tries to flee, but Natsumura and Tetsuma suddenly appear and capture him. Afterward Fruulin says that everything that happened was because of Yoshino. Tetsuma adds that Yoshino forced the princess to use magic, exposing her secret, and asks who else could have devised such a situation if not the sorcerer of the tree of Zetsuen. The following day, Fruulin speaks with Takumi over the phone and asks if he is certain that the national agency was behind the spy incident. Takumi replies that he expected as much. As she looks through the ruins, Fruulin notices something unusual and tells Takumi that she has found something that may be the key to uncovering the secrets of the Tree of Genesis and the Tree of Zetsuen. At the same time, Yoshino sits with Hakaze in a restaurant and shows her the news about Hanamura, saying that he became a hero in a very short time. Hakaze says she is beginning to understand what Samon is planning. Yoshino replies that the Tree of Genesis can stop all military attacks, and that no one knows how to destroy it. As despair continues to grow, Hanamura appeared as a symbol of hope. Their food is set on the table, and Hakaze says they should stop talking and eat. As she does, she remembers Junichiro's words about Yoshino's girlfriend and feels uneasy, thinking that she must distance herself from Yoshino for a while, because if her feelings deepen, the Tree of Genesis may kill the woman he loves. Elsewhere, Samon sits with Hanamura and Junichiro when Mahiro enters and asks if they are still waiting for news about Yoshino. He says they suspect Yoshino is the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen. Hanamura reacts in surprise and asks if there is another sorcerer besides him. Mahiro strikes him and says he cannot even control his power properly and lacks the courage to fight. Samon explains that they believe the heart of the sorcerer of Zetsuen separated from his body, and that the more they review what has happened, the more likely it becomes that Yoshino is the true sorcerer, meaning he is the one who killed Aika. Junichiro says that if Yoshino is the sorcerer, then his plan succeeded by making the princess fall in love with him, ensuring the protection of the Tree of Genesis. He adds that he can help Mahiro kill Yoshino. Mahiro suggests kidnapping Yoshino's girlfriend, noting that Yoshino never spoke about her to anyone, making her a suitable hostage. He says that if Yoshino abandons her easily, it will prove he is the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen. Samon says they should first determine who Yoshino's girlfriend is. He suggests that she is likely a high school student, possibly a classmate or someone from a nearby school. Hanamura then asks whether it is strange that Yoshino hid his girlfriend from Mahiro, even though Mahiro is his only friend, and suggests that Yoshino's girlfriend could be Mahiro's sister. Mahiro is left in shock. Elsewhere, Hakaze approaches Yoshino while he is holding his phone and asks if he was talking to his girlfriend. Yoshino replies that he was only checking the news. Hakaze suddenly tells him that she loves him. Yoshino is caught off guard as she continues, saying that she tried to stop loving him but could not. She says that she is protected by the Tree of Genesis and has only one wish, for Yoshino to let go of his girlfriend. She adds that if he does, the Tree of Genesis might grant that wish and kill his girlfriend for her, and that she can no longer control her feelings. She asks him to let her hate him. Yoshino replies that there is no need to worry about his girlfriend, because the Tree of Genesis cannot do anything to her, since she has been dead for a year. He opens his phone and shows Hakaze a picture of Aika. Hakaze is stunned. Hakaze says that she heard Yoshino and Aika were always fighting. Yoshino replies that they hid it from Mahiro, but that the truth was different. Hakaze becomes unsettled and says that means Aika died because of her, asking how she could ever ask for forgiveness. Yoshino says they still do not know who killed her, and that even if the Tree of Genesis was responsible, Hakaze is not guilty of Aika's death. Hakaze grabs him in agitation and asks how he cannot be overwhelmed by her death, and how he managed to hide his feelings even when she was alive. Yoshino answers in pain, asking what she expects him to do, whether to tell Mahiro everything, or to admit that he is even more broken than Mahiro is. He says that when Mahiro called to tell him about Aika's death, he collapsed from the shock and could not even move. He shouts that he cannot bring Aika back to life or change the logic of this world, then falls to the ground and breaks down. Hakaze holds him and thinks to herself that if the Tree of Genesis was responsible for Aika's death, she will never forgive it. Elsewhere, Samon says that when they were at the Tree of Zetsuen already knew who Aika's boyfriend was, which means it must have been him. Mahiro replies that when Aika died a year ago, Yoshino showed no visible reaction and continued living as usual, and that his girlfriend was supposedly still alive. Hanamura says Yoshino may be someone who hides his emotions, or that he never had another girlfriend and lied. Samon says the theory that Aika was Yoshino's girlfriend fits perfectly and asks her to keep watch over Hakaze. The next day Hakaze and Yoshino sit at a restaurant when Junichiro appears. Hakaze asks Yoshino to step away so he cannot hear, then tells Junichiro that she has fallen even more deeply in love with Yoshino. Junichiro is stunned. Hakaze says she intends to test the principles of the Tree of Genesis. She explains that if the tree truly protects her, then wishing for its defeat should be granted. If it grants that wish, they will know it is just, and if it does not, they will know it is evil. In either case, she says the tree must be destroyed. Hakaze stands and says that her time with him is over. Elsewhere, Samon stands with Natsumura before the Tree of Genesis, waiting for the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen. He receives a call from Junichiro, who says that the princess trapped him and sealed the door with magic, and that Hakaze intends to defeat the Tree of Genesis. Samon is shaken, and Natsumura hears that the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen has arrived. The sorcerer approaches and stands before the Tree of Genesis, gathers his power, and strikes, but the tree blocks the attack. Hakaze emerges from the water, chants her spell and roots surge upward, attacking Hanamura. Fridolin speaks to him through an earpiece, telling him not to run or he will be branded a coward. Hanamura gathers his resolve and says he is the only one who can stand against the tree, then attacks with all his strength. Believing Hakaze defeated, he continues, but the princess returns, draws her sword, and strikes him. Hanamura blocks the blow, and the two clash, exchanging rapid attacks. Hakaze says she has reached Hanamura's limit and withdraws, and Hanamura delivers the final blow, destroying the tree. Next day, Fridolin reads the news about the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen, holding her head as she struggles to understand the princess's actions. Takumi tells her that they should be grateful, because the government has now decided to destroy the Tree of Genesis. At that moment, their car crashes into a barrier, and the princess appears in front of them, greeting them calmly. She gets into the car and says that there is a theory claiming the Tree of Genesis is a deadly weapon, and that Yoshino is the true sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen. She tells Fridolin that she already knows what she is thinking, adding that if Yoshino were trying to control her, she would never have trained Hanamura for battle. Fridolin says that the princess does not seem surprised by the theory, then asks if Hanamura's training can be paused for a while, since he is completely exhausted and is likely being trained by Junichiro now. Takumi thanks Hakaze, but she tells him there is no need. She explains that she brought out a new fruit, and that only one remains. If the Tree of Zetsuen does not absorb it, it will never fully awaken and Hanamura will not reach his full strength. She then tells Fridolin that she wants to hear more about her theory. Later, Fridolin takes Hakaze out for a drink. Fridolin suggests that the Tree of Genesis may have been sent from space to destroy civilizations, and that the Kuzuribe family could be part of that weapon, since the clan sacrifices civilizations to protect the tree. Afterward they head to catch a train. Hakaze says that despite this theory, she still controls the Tree of Genesis, asking why it would allow that if it had evil intentions. She then asks Fridolin for a favor, requesting that she bring her the doll and the barrel from the Tree of Zetsuen, because she plans to return to the past. Elsewhere, Mahiro goes to the cemetery and tells himself that he should go home, since he likely will not find Yoshino there. As he turns around, he is startled to see Yoshino standing in front of him. Yoshino asks why he is there, noting that Mahiro rarely visits his family's grave. Mahiro says he was just passing by, then reminds Yoshino that he promised to tell him who Aika's boyfriend was. Later, they sit together, and Yoshino says that Aika's boyfriend was him. Mahiro reacts with anger and asks how he can say it so calmly. Yoshino replies that he expected Mahiro to stand up and hit him. Mahiro says quietly that there is no reason to do that, admitting that he was not an ideal brother to Aika, and that he could never properly show her his love, often being too harsh. As they walk together, Mahiro says he is surprised Yoshino managed to hide the truth even after her death. Yoshino says he tried to suppress his feelings. Mahiro asks if Yoshino is sure he does not want to hit him, even once, then adds that if he ever did, it would not be just once. Elsewhere, Samon sits in a car when Natsumura calls and informs him that Mahiro went home with Yoshino. Samon is taken aback and thinks to himself that it is good they reconciled so quickly, but wonders how long he will keep dealing with such unexpected developments. The next day, the princess stands before them as she prepares to extract the final fruit. She says that she will return to the time before Aika's death to discover who killed her and for what reason. She says she must confirm it herself and finally resolve the mystery. After that, soldiers are sent to dig near the Tree of Zetsuen to retrieve the doll and the barrel. One of them finds the items and contacts Takumi to report it. Takumi tells Fridolin that the princess has come up with a reckless idea, saying that traveling back to the past is far too dangerous. Elsewhere, Hakaze explains her plan, saying that when she returned to the present, the doll and the barrel were found beside her skeleton. Because they exist, she can return to the past without difficulty. She says she will go to Mahiro's house before Aika's death, so she can learn who killed her, how it happened, and why. She tells Mahiro and Yoshino that it could have been the Tree of Genesis. Or it could have been the sorcerer of Zetsuen, but either way she promises to uncover the truth. Hakaze lies down on a chair with Samon and Junichiro beside her. Samon asks what her true reason is for wanting to go back. She answers that she already explained it, to find out who killed Aika. Samon says he suspects she was the one who killed her. Hakaze smiles and says that when she used magic to identify the killer, no one was caught in the magical web. She adds that it may have been someone insignificant who possibly died during the recent events, and that even if she herself killed Aika, Mahiro would still be able to take his revenge. That night, they arrive at the site prepared for her journey to the past. Yoshino approaches Hakaze and asks to speak with her alone. They step aside, and Yoshino says that if she goes back and saves Aika, she will die in the future, because Mahiro would have no reason to help her. Hakaze replies that she cannot revive Aika in the first place, and that no one in the world has the power to bring the dead back to life. Hakaze returns inside, touches the device and the barrel used for time travel, chants the spell, and disappears into the past. Samon tells Mahiro and Yoshino that they need to understand how dangerous this is. Mahiro responds that if Hakaze kills Aika, then he will have to take revenge. Ferd Olin asks what they think would happen if the princess witnessed Yoshino killing Aika, adding that it is possible Yoshino is the true sorcerer of the tree of Zetsuen. Mahiro says that if that turns out to be the case, then he will kill Yoshino. Elsewhere, the princess arrives in Aika's city and tells herself that about 4.5 hours remain until Aika's death. She turns and is startled to see Aika herself, realizing it must be because this area is close to her home. Hakaze walks ahead of her, and Aika asks why she is staring and whether they know each other. Hakaze hesitates and says that the food Aika is holding looks delicious, and that she just wanted to ask where she bought it. Aika explains the location and says she will enjoy it. Hakaze thanks her and quickly runs off, leaping onto a rooftop. Hakaze tells herself there was no need to flee, since Aika does not know her or her magic. She notes Aika's distinctive appearance and recalls what Mahiro and Yoshino said about her personality. Hakaze lets out a small laugh and says she is surprised Yoshino became her boyfriend. Suddenly, Aika appears behind her and Hakaze freezes. Aika says it is strange that Hakaze knows both her and Yoshino, while Mahiro does know the true nature of their relationship. She adds that Yoshino would never speak about her, and that Hakaze mentioned magic. She points out that it would be impossible to reach this place so quickly, and that Hakaze spoke in the past tense. She concludes that Hakaze must be the princess of the Tree of Genesis. Hakaze is stunned and asks how she figured it out. Aika replies that it was simple deduction. Hakaze says angrily that no one could reach the Tree of Genesis through deduction alone. Aika answers that she just wanted to play detective, then says she usually avoids introductions, but that this is the right moment. She declares that she is the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen, and summons a massive sword with magic, leaving Hakaze in shock. Aika tells her that they need to leave the area before the government notices them. At sunset, the two sit together and talk, and Hakaze explains everything she knows about the future. She asks whether Aika believes her. Aika answers that she does, saying that Hakaze is the princess of the Tree of Genesis, and that what she said about the tree is true. She adds that if the Tree of Genesis is not destroyed within 10 years, modern civilization will disappear, and only a small number of humans will remain. At the same time, an enormous tree trunk emerges, so vast that it stretches into space. Takumi sits in his office, wondering how a structure of that size does not affect the Earth's rotation or gravity, and whether this is the true power of the Tree of Genesis. He goes to Samon to understand what is happening. Samon says this trunk was never mentioned in the Kusaribe family records, but suggests it could be the heart of the Tree of Zetsuen. Elsewhere, Hakaze asks Aika about Hanamura. Aika replies that since she will die earlier than she should, perhaps he was born earlier than his time. She adds that the Tree of Zetsuen existed before the Tree of Genesis, and that it is the only force capable of defeating it. She says that if no one destroys the Tree of Genesis, it will eventually wipe out every civilization. Hakaze is taken aback and asks how someone with Aika's power could be killed within a few hours. Aika answers that she is the one who killed herself, so Hakaze could destroy the Tree of Genesis. She explains that her death led Hakaze to meet Mahiro and Yoshino, and to develop feelings for Yoshino, which pushed her toward wanting to destroy the tree. As the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen, Aika says it is her role to defeat the Tree of Genesis, even if that requires sacrificing her own life. Hakaze says that means she is responsible for Aika's death. Aika replies that no one is responsible but herself. What matters, she says, is that Hakaze return to the present, tell Mahiro and Yoshino the truth, and destroy the Tree of Genesis. Hakaze reacts angrily, saying Aika has no idea how much those two suffered because of her death. She says Aika is the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen, yet chooses death so easily, leaving Mahiro without revenge and both of them unable to move on. She says she will not allow Aika to kill herself. Aika answers that she believes they will understand, and that Mahiro will accept it as long as the truth makes sense. Hakaze shouts that Aika does not understand anything, saying Yoshino cried because of her. Aika slaps Hakaze and asks why she allowed Yoshino to cry in front of someone else. In response, Hakaze uses magic to restrain Aika, preventing her from returning to the mansion to take her own life. Aika asks if Hakaze knows why the Kusaribe kind's magic is restricted, explaining that it exists to make the Tree of Genesis appear benevolent, without negative effects on society. Suddenly, Aika breaks free using her own power, shattering the restraint and summoning two swords. Hakaze attacks but Aika blocks every strike. Hakaze tries again, but Aika nullifies the magic completely. Aika asks what will happen if Hakaze stops her, saying that when Hakaze returns to the present, Yoshino and Mahiro will already be dead, because the Tree of Genesis will have destroyed the world. She says she will not allow herself to be stopped, and that she will sacrifice her life to save Mahiro and Yoshino. Hakaze loses control and says she will not let Aika kill herself even if she has to kill her first. She releases all her power, while Aika gathers her strength and strikes back. The defensive barrier collapses. She breaks through, strikes Hakaze, and sends her flying. Walking toward her, Aika says that the magic of the Tree of Zetsuen is supported by the Tree of Genesis, meaning that as Hakaze's power grows, so does hers. Aika casts a spell that renders Hakaze unconscious, then leaves to return home and end her life. Hakaze wakes and runs after her, but when she arrives, it is already too late. Aika is dead. Hakaze finds a letter Aika left behind and reads it. Aika wrote that there is another letter meant for Mahiro and Yoshino, and asks Hakaze to give it to them after the Tree of Genesis is destroyed, and to leave no trace that she was ever there. She wishes her luck. Hakaze leaves the house, runs to Aika's grave, and tells herself that she must return and tell them everything. She says she cannot lie and breaks down in tears. The next day Takumi rides in a car with Friulin, his expression heavy as he says the government has decided to protect the Tree of Genesis, and that he has received orders to eliminate anyone who attempts to destroy it. He says he did everything he could to oppose the decision, but nothing changed. Takumi asks Tetsuma if there is any news from the Kusarib agents who infiltrated the reconnaissance ship sent toward the tree's core. Tetsuma replies that the situation is dire, and that all they can do now is wait for the princess's decision. Elsewhere, Samon and Hakaze stand at Aika's grave. Hakaze pulls Aika's letters from the ground and tells Samon that she hid them there in the past so she could retrieve them upon her return. Samon asks whether she will tell Yoshino and Mahiro the truth. Hakaze replies that she promised them, and that she intends to keep that promise. That night, Hakaze visits Yoshino and Mahiro and tells them everything. She says she was entrusted with these letters. Mahiro listens and says bitterly that now everything makes sense. Hakaze asks whether he is upset. Mahiro answers that he is not, and that he must accept the truth. Yoshino thanks Hakaze for what she did for them. Hakaze asks whether they think she is responsible for Aika's death, since it was connected to the Tree of Genesis. Mahiro replies that Aika's death was her own choice, and that Hakaze bears no responsibility. Hanamura suddenly becomes enraged, grabs the table, and hurls it aside, startling everyone. He shouts at Mahiro asking how long he plans to keep hiding his feelings, saying he should be angry. Hanamura punches Mahiro, grabs him by the collar, and throws him to the ground. Yoshino tries to stop him but Hanamura strikes him as well, yelling that even if it was Aika's decision, accepting it so calmly makes no sense. Mahiro gets back on his feet. Hanamura braces himself, expecting retaliation. But Mahiro says he is right and that he is fine now. He then asks if Hanamura understands their current situation. He says they are meant to defeat the Tree of Genesis, and there is no time left to grieve for Aika. He adds that since the world now protects the Tree of Genesis, anyone who tries to destroy it will face the entire world. The only power capable of defeating the tree is Hanamura's, which means he will have to fight alone. Hanamura is shaken by this. Later, they gather to plan their next move. Fraud Oline explains that the core of the tree is guarded by the navies of 20 countries, with 200 ships forming a perimeter within a 20-kilometer radius. Their mission is to prevent any attack on the tree. She says the world is now united to protect the Tree of Genesis, which means the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen has become an enemy to all nations, and orders have been issued worldwide to capture him. Mahiro says not to worry, stating that the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen could destroy 100 ships with ease. Hanamura asks how many people would die if he did that. Samon says the Tree of Zetsuen's sorcerer must destroy the Tree of Genesis in a single strike, without harming the fleet, so that the world's hatred does not grow further. Yoshino asks whether they can rely on the magic of the Kusarib clan and Hakaze. Samon replies that within the core of the Tree of Genesis, magic does not function. He tells Hanamura that this is why he must fight alone, or the world will be destroyed. Hanamura stands frozen in fear. The next day Samon drives while speaking to Takumi through a wooden communication device, asking what he has done so far. Takumi replies that he leaked information claiming the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen is preparing to confront and destroy the Tree of Genesis, and that the naval fleet will surely prepare for battle. Elsewhere, Hanamura asks Mahiro for help and tells him that if anything happens during that's Mahiro to deliver a letter to his girlfriend. Mahiro takes the letter and tears it apart. Hanamura reacts in frustration, saying he spent 3 days writing it. Mahiro answers that if anything happens to Hanamura, the entire world will be destroyed, and that if he has something to say to her, he should stay alive and say it himself. After that, Yoshino and Mahiro approach Friulin and Hakaze and tell them they want to join the operation against the tree. Friulin replies that they already know Kusarib magic will not work near the tree, and that the mission must remain secret, with as few people involved as possible. She says they would only become a liability. Yoshino answers that no one will come to help them, and that even if they die, no one should try to save them. Mahiro adds that since the plan is his, he should lead the group. Friulin agrees, warning them that the battle will be extremely dangerous. At sunset Friulin speaks with Tetsuma and Natsumura and tells them she reduced the number of ships. Tetsuma says this is reckless, questioning how they can face 100 warships with a single vessel and 7 people. Natsumura adds that Kusarib magic will not function near the tree, and that only Hanamura will be able to attack. Frar Oline replies that if they can draw the fleet into an area where magic still works, they will secure victory. The following day, Mahiro sits with Hanamura while they eat and tells him the plan depends on endurance, so he needs to eat properly. Hanamura says bitterly that if anyone else had been the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen, the Tree of Genesis would have been destroyed already, and that he is the weak link. Mahiro replies that everyone believes Hanamura is strong, and that this belief is why they agreed to the plan. He adds that many lives were lost fighting Samon, but that Hanamura can defeat the Tree of Genesis without sacrificing countless others. They prepare for battle as Samon approaches with the ship and activates an invisibility spell, concealing them as the plan begins. Hakaze disguises herself as the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen and launches attacks on the fleet using Kusarabe magic. At the same time, Hanamura disguises himself as the dancing princess, pretending to oppose Hakaze's assault. He then requests protection from the fleet. The ships are deceived and move beyond the tree's range, allowing magic to be used freely. Yoshino and Mahiro board a reconnaissance ship. Mahiro tells the crew that explosives have been planted and orders them to steer as far from the tree's core as possible. They restrain the crew to prevent escape, but one sailor manages to draw a gun and fires at Yoshino. The bullet strikes his shoulder, narrowly missing anything vital. Elsewhere, the princess attacks Hanamura, and both plunge into the sea. Tetsuma quickly switches clothes with Hanamura to deceive the fleet. Hanamura dives underwater toward the tree, unnoticed by the ships while Tetsuma engages Hakaze in battle. As Hanamura reaches the tree's core, he steels himself, thinking that this is not the moment to give in to fear. No one can help him now, and this battle belongs to him alone. When the ships move out of the tree's range, Samon and Natsumura attach magical devices to the hull. Hakaze notices that one ship remains behind. It fires missiles at her, severing her arm. She restores it with magic, and when the ship fires again, she draws her sword and blocks the attacks. Elsewhere, Hanamura gathers his strength and strikes the tree's core. But the blow has no effect. The tree retaliates and begins attacking him. He pulls back and attacks again, yet still cannot damage it. The tree launches fruits toward him. Hanamura avoids them, gathers his power, and cuts them down. Branches extend and strike at him, and he slices through them with his sword, thinking that the Tree of Genesis is far stronger than he expected. At the same time, Samon boards one of the ships and shouts for them to move away from the core before the tree destroys them. The tree attacks immediately. Samon raises a defensive barrier and warns that it will not last long, urging them to retreat. The captain orders a withdrawal and tells a crew member to warn the other ships. The tree strikes another vessel, but Hakaze intervenes in time and saves it. Hanamura continues to challenge the tree, but it overwhelms him. It hurls him into the sea and tries to drown him. At that moment, a light shines from the Tree of Zetsuen. It takes the form of a sword and opens a gate through time. Hanamura rises from the water holding the sword of the Tree of Zetsuen. His power surges. He throws the sword at the tree, and in an instant, the Tree of Genesis is destroyed and vanishes from the world. Sometime later, Samon sits with Frar Oline as she remarks that crime rates have increased since both trees disappeared. Samon says that the problems that existed before the trees have returned, and that Takumi seems to be trying to control the resulting chaos. They finish their meal and leave. Frar Oline adds that Takumi is considering Mahiro as his successor, noting his sharp mind. They return home to find Hanamura cleaning the apartment with Natsumura. Frar Oline asks what they are doing. Hanamura says they will be leaving soon and want to leave the place clean. Frar Oline strikes him lightly and tells him that after saving the world, he should rest. Samon hands him his meal. Hanamura then receives a message, checks his phone, and says he finally found the courage to contact his girlfriend, and that she replied. He says he is going to meet her. Elsewhere, Mahiro and Yoshino ride a train together. Yoshino tries to open Aika's message, and Mahiro asks what he is doing. Yoshino says it is Aika's message, the one she asked them to watch after the Tree of Genesis was destroyed, and that he is trying to play the video. Mahiro grows irritated, and asks if he plans to watch it alone. In the message, Aika says that if they are watching it, then the Tree of Genesis has been defeated. She says she is about to die, but trusts their abilities. She tells Yoshino that their relationship was difficult for him, but that because of him, she enjoyed every day. She thanks Mahiro for staying with her, and tells him he is allowed to hit Yoshino only 3 times. She says there is no need to grieve for her death, and as the sorcerer of the Tree of Zetsuen, she wishes them both good luck, and says goodbye. They visit Aika's grave. Mahiro apologizes for never expressing his true feelings. He stands and punches Yoshino. Yoshino protests that Mahiro said there was no reason to hit him. Mahiro replies that Aika gave him permission. Mahiro asks what Yoshino plans to do about Hakaze. Yoshino says he does not know. At that moment, he notices Hakaze and quickly steps off the train to meet her.